What's up, everybody? It's January, which of course means it's the beginning of the new year. And like every year, new cars become importable to the US under the 25-year law. I wish we were like Canada and we had a 15-year law, but we have a 25-year law. So everything, of course, is 25 years old on this list or turning 25 this year. An important reminder when importing a car, it's the build date, not the model year. So if it's a model year 2001, and it was built in the end of 19 or 2000, it was importable at the end of last year. If it wasn't built until December of 21, it won't be importable until December this year. So just something to keep out if you're looking to import any cars on this list. We have 15 for you today. No honorable mentions. We just did 15. There's more than obviously than what is on this list. We're just gonna run through the top 15. I got them all. I got them on my phone here. So there's so much information here. I am going to be referencing down to my phone just to make sure I got everything right. But starting at number 15 is the Skoda Octavia VRS Mark 1. Now this is a Skoda sedan. If you're not familiar with Skoda, Skoda is one of the brands under the Volkswagen umbrella. I'm blanking on which country it's actually from now, but it's EU, and that's really what matters. And it's a Volkswagen. This is a sedan based off of the Mark IV Volkswagen Golf. So it's got Golf underpinnings. It's got a GTI motor in it that's a 1.8 liter inline four turbo with 178 horsepower. You can get it with a 5-speed manual, and you can get it with a sedan or a wagon body style, and of course a wagon already has a place in my heart, but getting a essentially GTI wagon is really cool. 178 is, not the highest number, but you can get it with the 5-speed manual. It's got a turbo. Of course, for engine mods, there's going to be a lot of aftermarket support because it's based off of a Golf. And it's just a fun sedan or hatchback that you could get, but it is 15 on this list. And then at number 14, we have the Honda Accord Euro R. The Euro R is a performance trim that we didn't get. It has a 2.2 liter VTEC inline four. This is essentially like the Type R of Accords. It's got a 5-speed manual, and unfortunately, it only comes in front-wheel drive, which I forgot to mention on the Skoda is also front-wheel drive. But it's a front-wheel drive performance sedan made by Honda. So if you don't quite want a Civic, which we do have a Civic Type R on this list, you want a little more practicality, a little more room, you go for the Accord Euro Type R. Like I said, 5-speed manual, 220 horsepower VTEC inline four. And we all know that Hondas can be really fun to drive cars, and this should be no exception. So number 13 on this list, we have the MG ZS. Now, a lot of people have the MG ZR, or people combine them, but they are different cars. The ZR is more of the hot hatch. The ZS is a sedan, or in later model years, you can get it in a wagon. It comes in a 5-door hatchback. So the MG is MG is not a brand we got in America. Well, we did get, I guess we got the MG Roadsters, but we didn't get the MG ZS or the MG ZR. Like I said, this is a sedan or 5-door hatchback. I went with this over the hot hatch. This came with a few different motor options. It came with an inline 1.4 liter inline four in Ireland and Portugal that only had 102 horsepower. It came with a 1.6 liter inline four that came with 107 horsepower, a 1.8 inline four that came with 115 horsepower. But what you really want is the 2.5 liter V6 that came with 175 horsepower. There's also two inline four diesels, which depending on which one you got, it had either 99 or 111 horsepower. And you want to say, oh, well, diesel has the torque, but the 2.5 liter V6 had the same amount of torque as the higher powered inline four diesel. And this is another front wheel drive car. And of course, front wheel drive, and I do think they're kind of a little ugly, but like in a good way. Front wheel drive, little ugly. The 175 horsepower, nothing to laugh at. But this got higher on the list than the Euro R because we got a Honda Accord. We didn't get any of these cool MGs. And it is front wheel drive, 5-speed manual. But you can get a 5-speed manual and a 2.5 liter V6 5-door hatchback, which is the way I would go. I think it's super duper cool. And I had not heard of it before I started putting together this list. At number 12, we have the Mitsubishi Evo 7. Now, we didn't start getting Evos until the Evo 8, and then we got the Evo 8, 9, and 10. Unless you're a big Evo person, it's actually kind of hard to tell the difference when looking at the 7, 8, or 9, especially at a quick glance. And the 7 would be higher on this list if it still had the giant fog lights that the 4, 5, and 6 had. It lost those giant fog lights, which I think is one of the coolest things on the Evo, really gave it that like rally feel. So if I was going to import an Evo, I would be more into the 4, 5s, and 6s. But the 7's still really cool. It's got the famous 2-liter inline-4 turbo 4G63, putting out 276 horsepower. It's hard to know with Japanese performance cars what the real horsepower is because, especially in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the famous agreement that no car will make 276 horsepower. Despite the fact that when you dyno a lot of these cars, they do in fact make more than 276 horsepower. But we all know the Evo, 5-speed manual, or you can get a 5-speed automatic, but you can get the 5-speed manual, all-wheel drive, 276 horsepower, famous 4G63 Evo 7. And it might look like the 8 and 9, but then you can at least brag that you have an imported Evo to the Evo guys. I would still personally like 4, 5, and 6. That's why this is down at number 12 on the list. Number 11 on the list, and this might be a little bit of bias because of what's behind me, but the Hyundai Terracon. It's a 4-door sedan. Now, it's not based off of the Pajero Evo, but it is based off of the second-gen Pajero chassis. So we know, if you know Pajeros besides just the Evo, you know that they're still good off-roaders. They're cool cars. They have a good community behind them. But what's cool is the Hyundai Terracon is a Pajero in disguise, and I think it arguably looks better. It definitely looks more plain if you're trying to blend in, and you could still have a cool imported low-key off-road SUV that a lot of people wouldn't know about, and it's a good conversation piece. Now, like I said, it's on the chassis for the second-gen Pajero, which means it got the same 3.0-liter V6 that the Pajero had, and that might actually be the non-Mivec version of the Pajero Evo motor. Obviously doesn't make the same power, have the same performance. You can get a 2.5-liter diesel as well if you're more of a diesel guy, and I know a lot of off-road people are diesel people. I shouldn't say guy. Women are into cars too. That was from Mitsubishi, so that's separate from the Pajero. And then there's also a 2.9-liter, the other diesel's inline 4, 2.9-liter inline 4 diesel that was specific to the EU, Australia, and New Zealand, where I think everybody got the 2.5-liter inline 4, EU, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. You can get it with a 5-speed manual or 4-speed automatic. I know in the off-road community, it's less. I know some people are less favorable of manuals versus like the sports car community. It depends on, but you'll be less looked down upon with a 4-speed automatic with an off-roader than with a sports car, obviously. And then it's got 4-wheel drive. I didn't note it down, but I want to say it's got selectable 4-wheel drive. I don't think it goes into 2-wheel drive like the Pajero Evo does, but it does have selectable 4-wheel drive. So moving on to number 10 is the Toyota Verosa, however you say it. This was the replacement for both the Chaser and the Cresta, kind of put into one cars. The Chaser is very famous in the JDM community, and the Cresta is pretty big as well. This is like the larger version of the Altezza. If you're not familiar with the Altezza, that was like the IS300 sedan, and very famous for the Altezza taillights, those clear taillights. So you can get the Verosa with a 2.0-liter inline 6, which makes 160 horsepower, a 2.5-liter inline 6, which makes 179 horsepower, or 197. But what you really want is the big boy 1JZ GTE, the famous 1JZ GTE, the predecessor to the even more famous 2JZ. But it's a 2.5-liter inline 6 turbo, if you're not familiar. And that makes, of course, the 276 horsepower. And I'll admit, the Toyota Verosa, not the most beautiful car in the world. I think it's kind of ugly, but I think that's part of what makes it cool. It makes it low-key. You know, it's a conversation piece because we didn't get it. It's a little bit ugly. So I think that's interesting. And you can get a 1JZ GTE. It came with a 4-speed automatic, a 5-speed automatic, or a 4-speed automatic / 5-speed automatic for the trim that came with the JZ in it. That's going to be the VR5 trim. It came with the 1JZ. You can get it with a 5-speed manual, and you can get it with an LSD. All-wheel drive only comes on the base, so if you're looking for like a winter or snow car that's different, you have to get the base 160 horsepower 2-liter inline 6. But you can get rear-wheel drive on all trims, so you can have a rear-wheel drive 1JZ GTE 5-speed manual sedan with an LSD in the back, and have a lot of fun in your low-key, fun, fast sedan. The Altezza has been a sedan that I've like wanted, or that's where a lot of like 2Js and 1Js come from that people import. They come from like the Altezza. But I think it's really cool. I'm a big sedan and wagon person, more than hot hatches or crossover SUVs. So a cool rear-wheel drive, JZ-powered hot sedan is always something that I'm into. Moving on to number 9 is another ugly sedan. That's going to be the Lancia Thesis. The Thesis is famous as being part of the cars that got the famous Alfa Romeo Busso V6, which you could get this with a 2.4 liter inline 5, which is cool. That came with 168 horsepower, a 2.0 liter inline 5 turbo that came with 102 horsepower, or, and this is what these are the two options I would go with, especially because there's so many cars with these engines in them. There's a lot more parts. A 3-liter Busso V6 or a 3.2-liter Busso V6, making 212 and 227 horsepower, respectively. Or respectively. That's what I would go with. The Busso is one of the best sounding NA V6s of all time. Especially in the 164, they are very beautiful with the aluminum intakes. It's a beautiful, wonderful sounding, high revving V6 that there's a decent amount of parts availability and support for, just because there were so many Busso V6 cars. Now, you probably have to import parts, and I don't know what the direct support is, but there's a lot of groups out there, a lot of alpha groups out there, Lancia group. The 2.4 liter inline 5 and the 2.0 liter inline 5.6 came with 6-speed manuals. All of them came with 5-speed manuals. So if you're getting the Busso, you will have to get the 5-speed instead of the 6-speed. Although I don't think people care. One of the downsides to the Alfa Romeos of the era, and this is included in that because this is like a rebodied Alfa, is it is front-wheel drive, but you still get that awesome sounding V6, a good handling front-wheel drive sedan. A little bit ugly, but certainly, like I said about ugly before, a conversation piece nonetheless. And, God, I just love the Busso sound. If I remember in editing, I'll include a clip of the Busso exhaust because it sounds so good. Moving on to number 8 is the second-gen Nissan Stagea. People are pretty familiar with the first-gen Stagea especially, but now the second generation will be importable starting this year. Where things are different, this moves off of the RB platform and onto the VQ platform. We know the VQ platform from the Infiniti Gs and the Nissan Zs. We're familiar with that, which I think is also good. There's more VQ parts available because of that, and I'm a sucker for a wagon. That's why this is all the way up on number 8 on the list, despite having other things I don't necessarily care too much about. But like I said, it's powered by the VQ series engines. There's a 2.5 liter V6 that makes 212 horsepower, a 3 liter V6 that makes 256 horsepower, and a 2.5 liter V6 turbo that makes the 276 horsepower that's agreed upon. The base comes in rear-wheel drive. Everything else you can get in all-wheel drive, and you can get it with either a 4-speed or a 5-speed auto. No manuals in the 2001. There is a trim that comes in the later years that does have a manual. But if you're looking for like a cool car for the winter maybe, and you don't just want to get a sedan, an SUV or crossover, but you need all-wheel drive, you want something cool that we didn't get here, that's decent looking, you want the wagon practicality, you can get this in all-wheel drive and 276 horsepower with a 2.5 liter turbo V6, which I think is cool. Number 7 on the list, and this would be even in a better position on the list, but they were just so limited, and that is the new Beetle RSI. People in the Volkswagen community, they know the new Beetle. I'm not explaining anything new to them with the new Beetle RSI. But this came with a 3.2 liter, I'm reading that backwards, VR6, so not a V6, not an inline engine, the famous VR6, the 3.2 liter version, with 221 horsepower, a 6-speed manual, all-wheel drive, plus all the cosmetics they did outside, the wing, the wider fenders. It's the best looking new Beetle by far. It's the only performance Beetle. There was a later turbo, but it's fine. Or there might have been a turbo early on. There's a turbo Beetle, but it's obviously not the RSI. The tricky part is there's only 250 of these ever built, and they are rare, and they are expensive, and they're going to be hard to find. This would probably honestly be top 3. I thought the RSI was so cool. I mean, even the wheels are just gorgeous on this thing. They're just impossible to find. There's 250 built. If you do find one, you're going to have a lot of money. So they're expensive. They're rare. There should be decent aftermarket support with the VR6, but best looking Beetle, obviously the best performance Beetle, incredibly rare. You will win Cars and Coffee or whatever car show or meet you're at more than likely. It will be like the most rare thing there more than likely. And just an overall cool, weird thing. And if you know me, you know I love cool, weird things from automakers. At number 6, we have the Morgan Aero 8 Series 1. Now this one's a little bit weird. because if you go look it up, some places list the first model year as 2000, but everything I could find, production didn't actually start till 2001. It just premiered at the Frankfurt Auto Show. I think it was Frankfurt, but it premiered at one of the European auto shows in 2000, but they didn't start production until 2001. But this comes with a 4.4-liter BMW V8, making 286 horsepower, 6-speed manual transmission, rear-wheel drive. This is the only 0 to 60 or top speed I put on this list, but 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, which is as fast or a little bit faster than my Charger. 160 mile an hour top speed. It was the first new Morgan design since 1964, but I love that they kept it that old, like old rich looking design. And the thing that doesn't put it higher on this list, and something we've talked about with other cars on this list, is there was only 201 Series 1s built in total. So they're going to be a little hard to find. They're going to be expensive to acquire, but they are really cool. They look so old, yet you can tell that they're modern, they're fast, and they're just super interesting. Number 5 on this list, and if we're just going by performance, this should be probably at the bottom of the list, but it's quirky, weird, ugly, cool. It's the Renault Aventime. The Aventime is so weird. It's a 2-door minivan without a B-pillar. So it's like a coupe minivan without a B-pillar. I actually think it's really good looking for a minivan. They put a lot into the design. It's kind of ugly good looking, if you know what I mean. It's just a weird car. It was not very popular. Only 8,557 were ever built between 2001 and 2003. It's one of the worst selling cars because this was not meant to be a limited run. This was meant to be as many as we can sell, we'll build. And they didn't even crack 8,600. But it's a 3-liter V6. It's got 207 horsepower. It's front-wheel drive. So nothing to write home about. 207 horsepower is what like the slowest cars get nowadays, and it's front-wheel drive. But you can get it with a 6-speed manual. You can also get it with a 5-speed auto. Honestly, since this is a performance car, I would consider the auto. There's probably actually less of those. It's probably more rare being in Europe. But either transmission works because this is not a performance car. This is just a weird, cool car. And like I said, if we're going off performance, this should be in a much worse position on the list, but I think it looks good, even if it's kind of like ugly good, and it's just a weird car that was never really repeated in any kind of fashion. There's not really many 2-door B-pillarless minivans out there. This is probably the only one unless I'm forgetting something, and overall, just a interesting car that did not sell well, that would turn heads in America, and I still think is a beautiful car. Number 4, and this would probably be number 1 on the list if it was not for rarity, but it's another Renault, but this time it's the Clio V6 Phase 1. So if you're not familiar, the Clio is a Renault hatchback, and they decided in the early 2000s to be crazy and take the front-engine, front-wheel drive car. So the engine, essentially where the back seat is, you are literally like in the car with the engine, and make it rear-wheel drive. So it went from front engine, front-wheel drive to rear mid-engine, literally like almost right behind your head. Rear-wheel drive. They had to make it super wide to accommodate all of this. I think it looks really, really good. I think it might be the best-looking car on the list, except for what I have in the number 2 slot. And, I mean, this thing is insane. There's some reviews out there of it, and everyone says it's insane. The Phase 2, which is not importable for a couple more years, might be 1 year, 2 years, is even more insane with even more power. It's a 227 horsepower, 3-liter V6, rear mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, super wide, hot hatch. I think it's really cool. It is an homage to the old Renault Turbo rally cars. Now, this one's another rare one, and that's why it's not number 1 on this list, arguably, in that there was only 1,631 of these built. So once again, hard to find. Not as hard to find as the new Beetle RSI, but hard to find. They were expensive when they're new. They're even more expensive now, especially due to that rarity. But if you want something that people who are really into the weird, cool cars will freak out about, I might pass out if I see one of these at a Cars and Coffee coming up in the next year, couple years. The Renault Clio V6 Phase 1 is 100% up there, and then when the Phase 2s are portable in a year or two, those are going to be just as head-turning. But if you can get one of these, I would get one of these. It's insane, and I don't think you'll lose money. You'll be able to sell it for as much or more than you got it, than you paid for it, but this thing's awesome, and if it was more common, it would be number 1 on this list easily. So number 3 on this list is the Honda Civic Type R EP3 generation, We got the Civic Si EP3. I, like low-key, think this is the best looking Honda Civic, is the EP3 generation. I just love the way it looks. I'm typically more sedan or wagon, but I think this is one of my favorite looking hatchbacks ever. It's got a really weird shifter placement. The shifter, instead of being like connected to the floor, comes out from the bottom of the center control stack and is like angled and just weird. This was the case for the shifters in all of the EP3 Civics, and it's the only Civic that I remember by chassis code, the EP3 or generation code, because I just love the EP3 so much. The UK market is, if you can only get a UK market one, I would get it, but that only comes with a 2-liter VTEC. Well, they both come with 2-liter VTEC inline 4s, the K20A version of the VTEC 4, but the UK market got 197 horsepower because they got the K20A2, where the Japanese market, where you're going to want to try to import yours from, also got a K20A, but it was just the straight K20A with 227 horsepower. It only comes in a 6-speed manual. It's front-wheel drive. Most of these cars on this list, actually, now that I think about, are front or all-wheel drive. Not too many rear-wheel drive cars, but it's front-wheel drive. It's just a cool looking. We didn't get the Type R, so people will freak out who know anything about Hondas that it's a Type R EP3. And I love the quirky shifter. I love the way it looks. I go on and on about how much I love the little weird things and how good it looks. But this is number 3 on the list because I think pretty much everybody likes the Civic Type R, and the EP3, like I said, in my opinion, is the best looking one. So number 2 on the list, the car that I'm saying is an argument for best looking on this list, is the Alfa Romeo 156 GTA. Another Busso powered car like the Thesis. It was first launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 2021, which if I remember correctly, is in September. And then you could start pre-orders. Production started at the end of 2021, so you'll have to wait pretty much into 2027 to get one, but you can start importing them at the end of the year. Arguably, that should have put it in a worse position on this list, but we didn't rank by that at all. But it's the 3.2-liter Busso V6, 250 horsepower, front-wheel drive, 6-speed manual or 6-speeded automated manual with paddles. Of course, you're going to want the 6-speed manual, but 250 horsepower. You can get it in the coupe form. Later, it actually came in like a hatchback, sport wagon form, but that was, I believe, 2002 or 2003. So we gotta wait for those. But you can still get it in the coupe version. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. It sounds amazing. 250 horsepower in a fairly light car, and a 6-speed manual. You just can't beat the combination of the sound, good power to weight, the 6-speed manual, and God, the sound. I love the Busso so much. And then finally, at number 1, I think the envy of so many of us who are into certain types of cars, looking back at the El Camino and the Ranchero, if you're into LS-powered cars, if you like the G8, if you like the SS, you know that you've always wanted the HSV Utes. Well, you can get the HSV Maloo R8 from the VU series starting in 2001. If you don't know what a Ute is, it's like you took a coupe and slapped a bed on the back. And I love Utes. And, this comes with a 3.8-liter Ecotec V6 with 204 horsepower. That's obviously not what you want. What you want is the 5.7-liter LS1 V8. We all know LS1 has crazy amount of support all around the world, especially in Australia and the US. Really, I shouldn't say all around the world. It's really Australia and North America that it's got crazy support. But there is an amazing amount of support for LS motors in the US. And you can get 302 horsepower. You can get the 6-speed manual in the V8. You can get a 5-speed manual in the V6 or 4-speed automatic. But you can get a 6-speed manual V8 LS1 powered Ute, rear-wheel drive. Most people don't need real truck stuff. You got a bed for light truck stuff like going and picking up stuff at Lowe's or Home Depot. They look really good. They can do burnouts. They can drift. They just sound so good. We all know the LS1 sounds amazing. And, we've been waiting for LS Utes. And every year we're going to get newer and better Utes available for import. I don't know how hard these will be to import, but they're certainly number 1 on my list because I love the Holden Utes and I love LSs and I love V8s in general. And being able to get an LS1 Ute in America would be awesome. So that's my top 15. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please comment down below what you think of my list. If I got anything wrong, it's hard knowing when the research is so limited out there. But anything I missed on the list that you think belongs that I did not put on there, or anything I did put on there that you don't think belongs. But please don't forget also like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you like when I talk about cars. I'll have a video coming of me diagnosing some stuff on the Pajero later in the year when I go to Phoenix. I'll have some car reviews coming. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.